the red, let the bow and arrowhead fly.
Good evening and welcome to Plain Talk. My name is Christopher Ram. Thank you for joining me for the next hour as I discuss with my guests topical issues going on in Guyana at the moment. I think on the screen you see the budget and the petroleum agreement. We shall be discussing issues beyond that, of course. What we want to discuss as well, there's a major international conference taking place in Guyana on petroleum, and I'm sure our guests this evening would be more than competent to discuss those issues with you. So let me get straight into it. I will introduce my guests. On my far left, Mr. Dexter George, and on my immediate left, Dr. Yog Mahadio. I should just say that these two persons are directly connected with a group called Article 13, and I will begin by asking both of them, what is Article 13 about and how did the name arise? Before I do so, let me point out that I too am associated with this group called Article 13, but they have to answer our questions. I'm here as the interviewer and demanding plain talk from the two guests. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening, good evening.
All right, what's this Article 13 about? Where did you get that weird sounding name?
Well, Chris, firstly, let me just put it this way. Thank you for inviting us, and let me put it this way to answer your question. The whole concept came out from, discussions between a fairly large number of persons in and out of Georgetown, in and out of Guyana, that says, let's create a group that can look, regardless of who's in government, look at how the citizenry of this country can participate meaningfully as major decisions are being made on our natural resources, on governance, on everything for this country. And so the name itself, it comes from Article 13 of our Constitution, the Constitution of Guyana, Article 13, which states, and I'd like to take a couple seconds to read it, Chris, it's not very long.
Sure.
The principal objective of the political system of the state is to establish an inclusionary democracy by providing increasing opportunities for the participation of citizens and their organizations in the management and decision-making process of the state, with particular emphasis on the areas of decision-making that directly affect their well-being. Particular emphasis on matters that affect the well-being of the state and the citizens. Yes. And therein lies, our concern to analyze, to give kudos to the government where it's due. When they're doing well, we say so. And to also point out where inclusionary democracy is not being practiced. Dexter?
Dexter, can you explain what that means? I know you quoted from the Constitution, but for the ordinary person, what does the text of Article 13 really mean?
Well, basically, to summarize what is being said here is that we have to look at what is being done for the Guyanese people by the political atmosphere that is out there. So if a decision has been made by the parliament, we need to have it being broken down in layman's terms so that every Guyanese can know how they impacted or affected by these decisions being made. And sometimes we see a lot of legislations and a lot of issues being tabled in parliament, and then all you hear is for the Guyanese people. and yet we do not know what exactly does it mean. And then you have a set of political personnel come and they try their best to make it sound nice, but some of them do not go in depth to say, well, look, we have just tabled in Parliament that you will be getting $5. They try to make it, a nice spin tactic, and they don't give you that broken down context. So that's one of the things. It's in our constitution, where Article 13 states that you must give some amount of accountability for the Guyanese people.
The term inclusionary democracy, what does that mean?
Well, Chris,
Again, I'm asking
Yes.
you to break
Yes.
it down for the viewers and the
thank you,
audience.
thank you. Just before I answer you there, let me also say that that is a right also, right? This inclusionary democracy, participation in the governance or in decision making that affects the state and well-being of people. It's also a right. I think it's section 149C.
See, that's correct.
Yes, yes. So, in decision making processes of the state, inclusionary democracy, Chris, as far as we're concerned, it is a very wide topic that can form the basis of a nice discussion itself. But it speaks to where the citizens of this country are being involved, are being consulted with.
Or have a right to.
And yes, they have a right to be consulted, they have a right to be involved, thank you. And not just a handful of persons that are just ticking off in the right boxes where the government is concerned. For too long that has happened. So therein lies the basis of what we are about and how we are going about our approaching the matters that we are presenting to the public, ensuring that the right of the people is being protected and ascribed to.
It's Article 13 is sometimes described now not in the Constitution, and just to summarize on the points just made, every citizen has a right to participate in decision making affecting their social, economic, and other considerations, their well-being. I'll ask you a couple of questions and I'll get back to that Article 13. There is this, we hear that a civil society organization. What does the term civil society really mean?
Well, in its most basic sense, we are not political. In its most basic sense, we are representative of society in general. We are of the people, for the people, with the people kind of approach. And so, Chris, you're right to focus on that civil society, because many times in our unfortunate history as a country, political history that is, a lot of organizations have been tarnished, a lot have been raised, and one way or another they have fallen prey to opportunism and stuff like that. But we stand here by, for, and of the people, looking at the civil, non-political part of what we do, how we play it, and to really bring the common touch, or common man's touch. Those who feel that they have no voice, we are now reminding them, you have not just a voice, but you have a right to a voice.
Dexter, we've seen organizations in the past, even the WPA started as a civil society kind of pressure group. Well, although that political, it was always characterized by politicians, it was not a political party. It is Article 13, the group that you gentlemen form part of. Is it a political party in disguise?
No, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not. A lot of persons are hoping that it is a political party, that it turns to be, what starts off as a simple discussion and manifests into a political party. As of today, I can safely say it's not a political party. It's a group of Guyanese, and let me not only say Guyanese, concerned Guyanese about the welfare and the state in which this country is going, right? And if you look at what we've been through since the last election period, Guyanese are now more aware of what's going on in in this country, and it's safe to say, and you have to say it in such a way that there should be a space where you could have a concern, a legitimate concern about the welfare of Guyanese and the country on a whole, where it doesn't have to be politically motivated. And this is something that needs to be done in this country. Not everything you touch on has to be a politically motivated issue. And a lot of Guyanese are in fact staying away from that lifestyle. Hey, I don't want to be politically involved. I don't want to be politically associated with. A lot of Guyanese are staying away from that, and that's a safe way to live. But at the same time, you do have a legitimate concern about actions and ramifications being made by the government or by the opposition. And you do have a right to say, listen, what are your views of what's going on? And you need to have it clarified. Because as a Guyanese, you have the right to information. And that's something Article 13 is trying to bring forward now. Listen, these are the issues that are going to the parliament. These are the issues that the government is bringing forward. These are the issues that the opposition is putting forward. What are your views? And your views can be put forward without it being politically influenced or politically motivated. And this is something that Guyana needs in this atmosphere.
Chris, can I add something very quickly?
By all means.
Look, there are a number of things that we need to bring to the fore, part of which is the following. When APNU AFC was in government, there was massive replacement of technical and non-technical people. Now we understand if a technical man appears on a political rally stage, then that is a different matter. But there were some technical people that APNU AFC let go because they either suspected or were convinced that these people were affiliated or associated to the PPP. Ali himself,
Yes, it's President Ali.
President Ali himself, before swearing in, said that they are not going to discriminate people based on their political affiliation. We know we have a right, a constitutional right of association and affiliation.
And a right to work.
And a right to work. But we have seen there's so many things happening in the society that if you're not sympathetic to the government, or if you the very soon ministers are posting on your Facebook page and calling you negaholic and calling you names and calling you all kinds of things just because you raise points. And you are seeing it translating to the attacks. You are seeing it translating to physical, not physical, but in anonymous attack. But more than that, you are seeing it having a toll on business and on people's right for employment. So people, to Dexter's point, people are scared. People are scared to speak out, to stand up for their constitutional right for fear of victimization. You are being told, I am being told, people are being told out there, if you can't go along with whatever the chorus is, you're not part of us. So only comrades could get this, and the refrain has been happening from Burnham to 1966 onwards to now, and nothing has changed. So that is something that we need to respect. Yes, I would be the first to say, if you are a public servant, if you are in the employ of government, you need to be professional as an employee should be. But if you are professional as an employee should be, then you should not be fired or be victimized because you're suspected of holding a different political perspective.
Your freedom of expression and your freedom of association and your freedom to hold ideas and views are not affected and cannot be affected, are not subject to any limitations based on your employment with government. So there's no question about that. Something happened this afternoon. Robert Prasad, that puerile foreign secretary we have, was talking in this international conference and talking with people who don't want to see development, and some of them are in this room. That's not the kind of thing you have. Is that what we have as a foreign secretary? Come on, we ought not to wash our linen, especially the dirty one, in public. But if you have puerile people, that's what you're going to get. I want to raise this issue as well. Your organization has been accused of taking money from the Trinidadians for, is it opposing local content? Is that correct?
That's what they said, yes. But it's not correct. So, Chris, let me answer in the following manner. I challenge anyone in Guyana, out of Guyana, wherever you are, whoever you are, I challenge you. Come check Article 13. Come check Yog Mahadeo. I will throw open me, my relatives, my family, whoever, wherever we are. Check whatever transactions. I'm sick and tired of this. But that's what they do. They sit in the muddy canals, I don't want to use the words that I don't use normally anyhow, but they sit in filth and that's what they spew. What else can you expect? Coming down to it though, to summarize, Article 13 has not been the recipient of a cent.
Has Article 13 sought any money?
We have not sought. We have not asked, we are not asking, and we are not going to ask.
No, but will you accept?
We'll never accept. Look, we came out publicly supporting local content policy. We came out publicly supporting the Local Content Act. We came out publicly supporting everything except the rushing of the Natural Resources Bill through Parliament. Not enough time to analyze what's happening and why is it happening in the way it is and the wording therein. But we support local content. We are championing the rights of this country, and this is why I want to ask you, Chris, sorry to put you on a spot. You have been attending this conference that you just mentioned. While we are championing local policy and we are championing the rights of workers in this country, I would like to know who is Guyana Energy GY, how many monies they have collected, who are the persons behind it, and how much of the things that has been used for the conference come from within Guyana. So, if you don't mind, Chris, I want to ask you, do you know who your sponsors or who the owners of this domain and this name and the persons you paid money to, who they are?
Well, let me tell you, Raman McRae paid $654,000 just to participate, to have a booth space, just a booth space, $654,000, 10 by 10. We also paid, Raman McRae also paid, because I couldn't afford to do it myself. Raman McRae paid for me. They paid another $70,000+ for my participation in the conference. Now, as to who makes up that organization, I'm sorry, I am not able to say. It just doesn't say it. Yeah, we paid $152,000 for attendance. Now, I think the point you're making, unfortunately, I cannot answer it, and I believe it's a question that ought to be answered. Who was the person or persons who were the persons that undertook this conference, and how was that decision made? How was this fee set? Now, this is where, we talk about local content. It's a paradox. This is going to shut out a lot of people. Apparently, even people wanted to see the exhibition of Guyanese things, they had to pay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's in your own country. Are we heading for a situation where Guyanese are going to be shut out? But I think it's an important question you ask. Unfortunately, I can't answer it. It doesn't. The answer is, the information is not there. All I know, I got a receipt. The fees are quoted in United States dollars. And as I said, we paid $654 for space. We had to do everything else for ourselves, put in lights, put in any decoration we wanted. And in terms of the actual, my participation for a 3-day conference, $152,000. This is to a Guyanese. That's my answer.
Thank you.
But I hope you pursue that.
Yeah, but Chris, just let me just say, so Article 13 and yours truly, and I think I can speak for Dexter here, we have no problems with the conference. Just before they get ready to shoot that at us, we support the meeting of the people, we support, but the question is, where is the transparency? When our monies and government monies are going to be spent, when we are hosting heads of states of various countries, we want to know who is it that invited them, who are these people that is bringing these people. And I found it almost prophetic to that the Prime Minister of Barbados could have said, don't let Guyanese be a tenant in their own country. And here we are. You have to pay a tenancy fee to go there.
Let's go on. Now, so you're not political. You ain't taking no money from Notre Dame. And all that is malice and meant to smear not an organization, but rather the individuals, often patriotic Guyanese who are prepared to stand up for what is right.
Yes.
Would you say you quoted what the Constitution in Article 13 and in 149C as a fundamental right, this right to participate in discussions affecting your livelihood? The National Resource Fund must have been one of the major pieces of legislation ever to have passed in this country, because what it does, it is where the proceeds of an exhaustible asset, your petroleum resources, where those money go, how they are spent, what is left for succeeding generation, because they wouldn't have oil, we have oil. So it's almost as though we must now act as caretaker for them. Would you say that Article 13 of the Constitution was applied in relation to the tabling and passing of the Natural Resource Fund Act?
The short answer is no.
You gotta go back all
Yes.
the way from when
The-
APNO did it.
Chris, when you look back at what APNO AFC did in the first place, and when you look thereafter, after the APNO AFC tabled and they did what they did, the current vice president, then opposition leader, promised Guyanese that when he gets into government, they're going to set up a technical team that will review everything, including
Now let's be careful.
bodies.
Is this you're not making that up? Is that an interpretation,
It's
or
not.
is that a fact?
It is a fact.
We try to be as honest as we can on
Absolutely.
Plato.
Absolutely. And if you go, well, presently there are videos circulating that shows the vice president, and I admire that when he said this, he said he's going to set up, or his party or his government is going to set up technical teams that will look at all the various aspects, including the oil contracts themselves. Now, what we end up having was that the Natural Resources Act, the bill, was rushed through Parliament. There was not enough consultation. I myself and another member of Article 13, we were invited to listen in to a forum that was being hosted by the government. There were a number of nothing was discussed about the budget. Nothing was discussed about the Natural Resource Fund.
So what was it you were invited for?
This was just pre-budget discussion,
Yes.
but they didn't say it was about the budget. Why I'm raising it, because what I found instrumental or instructive in that discussion was that various ministers that were present repeatedly said, we have already met with private sector commission, we have all, and they listed a couple of organizations, and in their minds, that is it. Now, have the people been consulted? Can we talk to the Chamber of Commerce? Let's talk business people. Can we talk to the Chamber of Commerce in Corriverton, in Port Morant, Essequibo? Were they consulted with regards to Natural Resource Fund Act, the bill, sorry. What we have found, based on our own queries, people were not consulted. A handful of persons that would always say yes to the government, whatever they want, they were consulted. But generally, as I said to you, the answer is no. There has not been enough thought, there has not been enough consultation, and it was obvious there was not enough time because it was rushed through.
Dexter, would you like to comment on why you think, if you think it was rushed through, and if so, why?
Well, one of the major reasons why I think they had to rush it is fear of scrutiny. Right, because if you're going to put something out there for the Guyanese public to just go in depth in, you would see a lot of scrutiny coming in, and a lot of changes would have to be made that would probably not suit a certain cohort of persons, and that's a long-term effect of it. Because if we rush something, then in the hidden agenda is that we're trying to hide something that we don't want people to see, we don't want people to know, right? So my thing is that, and I was telling you since a few days back, this bill stated that it was illegally passed by the APNU FC. Good. So since then, it was being scrutinized. Then when the PVP came to power, under their manifesto, under their political campaign promise and so forth, they did say, well, look, we're going to make the necessary changes, we're going to do all these things and make it legal. Sure, no problem. You're going to stick to what you promised the people, go ahead. But then now, when it's time for deliver what you want to the people to see, and have them, fine tune it. Just say, hey, listen, put this in, take this out. Why was that an issue? Why was that an issue? Because if you look at certain parts of the bill, I urge all Guyanese to, take a copy, have a read of it, and see. There are certain aspects that literally and I think the finance minister had once said it too, that they just lifted from the APNU AFC bill, made a few changes, and put it back. And this is one of the things they were bashing the opposition about, because they're saying, oh, it's your bill that we took, just tweaked it a little bit and put it back, so why are you complaining? That's one of the things they were, all going out and saying to the public. It's APNU FC bill, we just made it better for Guyanese. So okay, if you have made it better for Guyanese, let the Guyanese people have a good look at it. There's no need for you to rush it through. And then guess what? Few days after that bill passed, what do we got? 2022 budget. So it kind of like falls in like, okay, the only reason why we're going to rush this bill is so that we can start taking out this money right away. If you look at it, you understand? Because let's just break it down in a family setting. Your grandfather has passed and he left a wealth to you. And the only way for you to access this wealth is by opening a bank account. What's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to bury first, or you're going to run and open a bank account? This is the situation. Let's put it like that.
Now,
most people want, you know what I'm saying? They're like, oh, let's not mourn him. And no, let's go get the bank account for take out money for bury. There's the situation they're putting it is. So it's making Guyanese look bad on the whole. And then the thing is that if you say these things, what are you? Anti-development. You're not for the development of Guyana. Nobody, no Guyanese would sit down in this country and say, look, I don't want this country to develop. They'd be a liar to themselves. Every Guyanese, whether they support the PVP or not, wants to see this country develop.
Well, there's interesting. That's an interesting thing, and what we heard today, who don't want to see development, who want development includes health. It includes, importantly, security.
Exactly.
You must be able to walk. Development isn't a massive road or hydropower or anything like. Development is also the development of the human being. That's what development is all about. The individual. Maybe some people need to read Amartya Sen and development. I want to, because this program we like to try to break things down. We sometimes say bill, we sometimes say act. What happens is that when something comes to Parliament, it comes in the form of a bill. When it's passed and it's assented to, it becomes an act. It becomes the law of the country. Yoga, I wonder if you could explain what's the consequences in relation to the money in the Natural Resource Fund. What were the consequences regarding as a result of the passage of the Natural Resource Fund Act?
Well, Chris, I mean, therein lies a big challenge, right? Now you have passed an act, you haven't put the body together, you haven't formally appointed the persons you said you were going to appoint, but you have now passed a budget that allocates the use of the fund, and you have a problem. You have a problem because, I know that you yourself would have written something on this. You have a problem because is it then legal? Is it then legal to base an entire budget, and from day one, as long as the budget has been passed through Parliament, it's sacrosanct? So is it legal that you are utilizing the funds from day one without having the Natural Resource Fund, all the various bodies, all the various players in it, duly appointed? And Chris, let me just segue for 1 second to say this. This government has also not been appointing constitutional bodies. They have not been appointing bodies that they ought to.
Can we leave that for a little later? Let's talk about.
Yeah.
Because already Natural Resource Fund Act has some complexity, so we don't want to confuse it with other things.
Correct.
No, go on.
Yeah.
So what's the effect and the impact of what has now happened?
Well, the effect, I mean, is what I said in a nutshell. Basically, that is that the funds are being used in an illegal manner because you have not set up. You have the act passed, but you don't have anything set up. As far as the public is aware, as far as we are aware, you don't have anything set up following the act, except that you have seen financial papers made, presented in a budget to the Parliament to approve the use of the oil money.
All right. So one of the things that most persons don't understand clearly about the NRF bill, now act, is that after they passed it, there are certain guidelines that needs to be followed in order for that money to be withdrawn, right? And one of the guidelines is that you have to have this body in place to scrutinize why you want to withdraw this money. And what they were saying, the PVP was saying that under the APNU AFC's version, it was the finance minister who was the sole scrutineer. That's what they were saying. So what they've decided to do in this new version is to put an entire body of various personnel from different perspectives and backgrounds to be the scrutineers. And then it's then ascended to Parliament, and then Parliament approves. Good. So what they've done is skip that part, included what they wanted to do with the money, and put it in the budget plans. So that's why they're going to have this budget of all this massive development and infrastructure, and the largest budget they ever presented and so forth. Sounds nice, but did you follow the correct steps in order to get there? You understand? And this is the situation where we're facing. You can't say, okay, let's rush and pass this act, and you have all the dramatic issues that play out in Parliament, and then the whole 27 stories that you want to invent, about the opposition and so forth. Good. Now you have the act in place. Why are you not following it according to the same guidelines that you were enforcing to set out? Why is there a request for it to be put in the budget without it being scrutinized by the board that you have not yet assembled? And that's one of the things stated there, because you want to withdraw 100 million from the wealth fund. It states clearly in the act, listen, you have to list what you want to do with this 100 million.
Correct.
Exactly where each dollar is going to be spent on. That's one of the things, one of the requirements there. So even if they put it in the budget and they say they want to build road, they have to tell you which road they're going to build with this money and how much this road going to cost. So the act of itself that they rush to pass breaks down everything in detail, accountability in detail. So they've trapped themselves. Literally, they've trapped themselves to answer to the Guyanese public. And the only thing that's stopping them right now, that's not stopping them right now, is the Guyanese people asking them.
There was $607 million in this fund. What has happened? How much of that $607 million has now been taken out?
It's proposed to be taken out.
It's
Proposed to be taken out in the budget.
Yeah, how much is the budget taking out?
If you check I know that Article 13, we made a release on it. And I know that they had set levels and tranches, and they were looking at from 500 and a certain amount thereafter. I don't have the exact thing with me here. But Chris, one of the things that I just want to quickly mention before
But I did have a specific question. Of the $607 million, how much has now been taken out?
But we don't know.
No, it's the entire amount.
The entire amount. Because of the way it's set up.
Because of the way it is set up. The entire amount. The Act specifically says.
Oh, yes.
In the first year,
yes.
Thank you.
The entire amount.
Yes.
In subsequent years,
You go half.
if you make only 500 million, the entire 500 million. The next 500 million
Correct. Thank
is
you.
75%. The next 500 million is 50%.
Thank you. Yes.
So what is happening with the Natural Resource Fund, which is supposed to be a saving, a stabilization type of and a budget and investment type of instrument. What's happening is, at least in the early years, there will be nothing left, very, very little left in the fund. So as of today, there's nothing in the fund, with the 607 million having been removed. If we get 900 million this year, you will have 500 out plus 75% of that, so you get $875 million of that $900 million plus will be coming out. Now, my question, I come back. You've pointed out, now it's only a court that can really rule on the illegality of something, legality or illegality of it. And we lawyers like to say there's a presumption of legality. In other words, you presume that it's legal until you prove otherwise. You have raised questions about the legality, both the withdrawal because the mechanisms are not in place, and the danger of these things is you create a precedent. So you do it this year, you don't need a board.
No.
You can get money out of this thing without a board. Why you need a board? But the other thing that should directly concern Article 13 is that there has been probably no consultation. Is that too strong a view to take? No consultation on this withdrawal?
It's not too strong. I think what's been happening, Chris, is that as you rightly point out, it really slipped me. The full withdrawal or the maximum, all of it that would have been allowable in the first year based on the wording of the act, Um, there obviously has been consultation, right? But there obviously has been consultation with the people who wants it to happen this way. But there has not been consultation with broad base across the country. We have seen people like Taran Kemraj, for example, writing articles, pointing out certain things about the fund, about the construct of the law itself. And obviously, I mean, there are people out there that has many questions, no answers.
Well, the issue of consultation, and I'm sorry to be intervening, there was a case recently before the Caribbean Court of Justice, which is the highest case for Guyana. Although the court is not physically situated in Guyana, although it can also it has met from time to time in Guyana, so it's like it's a circuit court. It can in fact meet in any territory, but its base is in Port of Spain. The court has ruled that Guyanese, it has interpreted Article 13 and 149C of the Constitution and said consultation means real consultation. Now, so what we have, you have had a lack of consultation, and you probably have had a misapplication because, as Dexter was saying, a member of Article 13, as you can see, his name on the board, as Dr. Yog Mahadio, the government did not comply with their own legislation as to how the money moves from the Natural Resource Fund to the Consolidated Fund.
That's the
So
problem.
we've got a double violation here.
Yep.
Indeed. Yes.
So the thing is that what is going to be said, and I want people to look out for these keywords. Well, after persons listen to what we're saying here now, is going to be coming probably branded as anti-budget, anti-development. We're not for the betterment of Guyanese and so forth. And I wanted to be clearly said that no, I am for the betterment of Guyanese. And if a guideline is set in place and a lot of effort and energy has been put in forward for that guideline to become law, then it should be followed. Now the thing is, what they're going to say now is that, oh, we're working on selecting these persons. We have to ensure that we get the best persons to put on these boards and so forth. Now, if that is the case, let's go back to the original question. Why rush the bill? You understand me? Because if you're rushing a bill, then you would have already gotten these systems in place. You would have already look, this is what I'm going to present. This is what I've consulted with the general public. And these are the persons out of the Guyanese society, whether it be from the private sector, whether it be from the Public Service Commission, whether it be even a man on the street. These are the people that we deem capable of overlooking what is going to be done with these monies. Now, yes, I am going to say yes, we do need the influx and spending in order towards the development of Guyana. But let it be done legally.
Development when you do nothing about the minimum wage and you leave the minimum wage at just about $200 a month?
No.
Is that what you're calling development?
No. When I say development, I'm not talking about...
You're talking about these mega projects?
No. I'm not talking about mega projects. Right? I'm not talking about mega. Because I'm there as in the lower class bracket. Let me put it that, in the lower class salary bracket. So when we see in development, right, is that same 7% what they're complaining about. That people are saying, listen, 7% can do. Put something more on top of it. And you have persons who don't and would not even, pick the teeth with 7%, come in and saying, yeah, that's the best you should be accepting that. This is what the government has to offer. And you know what I fail to understand is a lot of Guyanese are highly educated. Highly educated. Guyanese people around the world are respected because of their education level. And nobody can tell me we missed geography class about Guyana. And one thing they say in the geography class is all these natural resources before oil that we have. And then we have the agriculture class that tell you about all these crops that gives revenue to this country. So we're not poor. We're poorly managed. We've been poorly managed.
You mean the country is not poor?
The country is not poor.
A lot of people are poor. And that distinction, I think, needs to be made.
Right.
People who are struggling to cope with rising prices, who are struggling with sending their children to school, who are struggling with paying their rent. That's poverty for you, friend.
And that's
Who have to decide what the children are going to eat.
And
That's the kind of decision that has to be
That's a
made.
result of poor management over a number of decades, not
Well,
years, decades.
Is it just management when you have an economy that you hear is growing by 47%?
No, 19 last year.
And no, they said 47% this year.
This year.
Say it's growing by 47%. Your per capita GDP has moved from about 6,000 US to 10,000. I don't know if you have that money, but how can you? There's some disconnect between our national statistics, and I'm not talking about the rate of inflation, between what they say our per capita GDP is now over 10,000 United States dollars, and we are still struggling. I want to switch on this issue. Tell me what you think of the labor movement in Guyana. And Tecumseh Gunsay, a member of the WPA, he did not name people, but he clearly was referring to the leadership of the TUC and the leadership of the Public Service Union, Mr. Patrick Yard. What do you think about the equality of leadership in the trade union movement we have? You can use the word stink.
No,
You
I
can't think about it.
I'm
Yeah,
not.
you can't think about it at
I
all.
do not bash
No, sir.
persons directly.
Even when they don't do their work?
I do not bash persons.
Okay, good.
If I see it to your face, I will tell it to your face. I'm not gonna.
So what do you think of the labor movement then?
I think it needs to be revamped. And-
Revamped? What-
Yes.
What do you
And
mean? People removed?
Revamped, and anybody could use their interpretation of that word.
Okay, all right. Chris,
So
you-
no.
well-
I'm thinking. What I'm saying is that there are persons there who've been around so long and been ineffective. And you want the thing about labor movements across any country is that you need the younger generation to take up the mantle, to be more representative, to be more involved. And if you go to all these unions, Ram, you got you're leading them with grace.
What do you think of the? Well, maybe Tecumseh Gunsay's letter today.
Yes. Chris, it's a sham. It's a sham. It's an insult to the people of the country, I think. Look, I just want to quickly say this. Lincoln Lewis and, those older folks would remember Joseph Polydor. Union movements in Guyana have been closely linked to political parties. I remember Lewis would have said to Granger in public, I mean, it was aired and shared all over the place, asking Granger to just do away with everything and get himself sworn in, regardless of what was happening with the recount. Should that be the role of a trade union leader? That is one. But you have had cases historically where GAU, TUC, all these major players, they sit either directly in parliament or they form part of the hardcore of the government's consultation just to give them support. The GPSU has been dinosaur in its approach, and only gets alive and active and probably proactive when the PPP is in office.
Well, the PPP is in office now.
And the PPP
and
is
it
in
still hasn't
office
done
now,
anything.
but the dinosaur seems to still be slumbering.
Well, let me ask you to comment on this. I know Dexter doesn't want to get involved in individuals. It's led by individuals. It's not led by some building. To come over and say the almost impotent state of the unions to provide effective representation to its members is unparalleled in the history of the country. This is not mincing words.
That's right. No, and that is put as apt as it can be, and I can totally agree with it, Chris.
And you know, he goes on to say this unfortunate situation has resulted in the government demonstrating open disrespect and contempt for workers in general, and more particularly its employees in the public sector.
Correct. Case in point.
Who else can you blame for the PSU than its leader and its presidents?
Because, Chris, case in point, public servants has had to be given 7% increase, right? There was no negotiation. You didn't go through all of the union agreement. All of that is in the garbage, and the union management is just quiet. And just let me add this: the union management, GPSU, should wake up, as should all of them, and check the national budget. You can see how much monies were budgeted for wages and salaries, right? You can check the budget. You can question the government. You're an important stakeholder. Awake, because people are suffering. And Chris, you spoke to it. To say that your GDP is 10,000, show me how many Guyanese. There's probably just one clique that is supporting the government that's probably going to say yes, but everybody else is suffering. You have to really work hard to make things happen. And not that we don't want to work hard, but there should be a level playing field. There should be a level playing field for access to everything, including health services, including education, including everything, every single thing. You must not have a state within a state, a select few. This thing, nepotism, cronyism, and eating away our core, and the poor people are getting poorer. You know, Chetty used to say something, let the small man, it's an old socialist thing too, let the small man be a real man. Well, not in Guyana. Never.
That used to be the battle cry of the trade union movement as well.
Yes.
Meaning they must have real power. They don't. And yet they just go to the polls and are led. Mm-hmm. Now, we have about 10 minutes more. Mr. Darren Woods, Chairman and CEO of ExxonMobil, is in Guyana at this conference. By public reports, he met with the president, he met with the vice president, and despite all the calls by Glenn Lal and others about this contract, there is nothing in the public domain to suggest that the government raised with Mr. Woods that his hosts, the source of his company and his shareholders' wealth and his bonus is Guyana. They did not raise with him the dissatisfaction of a large section of the country, including the PPP leadership when they were in opposition, their unhappiness with this contract. What do you think about that? Is it a lost opportunity?
Correct. Chris, look, both Jagdeo and Ali,
President Ali,
Ali and Vice President Jagdeo, well, I was referring to them before their their thing.
Yeah.
Both of them said publicly they're going to revise, they're going to relook all kinds of words they use with regard to the oil contracts. Nothing has happened. Now we are hearing all of a sudden about sanctity of contract. A government that has spoken and maybe broken contracts in the past now suddenly cares about sanctity of contract. There is not a man, woman, or child in this country, whether they're in office, in government or not, that does not admit we have a bad deal. There is not, Chris, you're the lawyer in the room. Contract signed in bad faith. This was a terrorist act, that contract. When you look at it, I just want to say this because I'm passionate about it. I know that the politicians call me emotional. But you know what? That's all I have for Guyana. Emotion and care. I just want Guyanese out there to imagine for one moment. Imagine Mark Phillips Prime Minister. Imagine Gail Teixeira Minister. Imagine Frank Anthony. Imagine all of them. Bishop Edghill. Imagine all the ministers, all your members of government walking into Parliament with their hands bound in handcuffs. Imagine that for one moment. Imagine the new opposition leader, Chris Jones, the chief whip. Imagine they all walking into Parliament with hands bound. And I'm going to say why.
Thank you.
Because the contract that this country seems to be happy to say we got to respect the sanctity has bound them all. The Parliament of this country cannot pass any laws, cannot make any amendment or pass any such thing that can affect the contract to the negative, or to affect negatively Exxon's gains on this contract. They have emasculated our Attorney General, our President, our Vice President. They have literally ripped apart the Constitution.
The most sacred
yes,
book.
The Constitution of this country, and you're telling me sanctity of contract? That is the most absurd thing I've heard. And you have Darren Wood smiling, posing in front of all the cameras, and we are saying, well, that contract, we have to respect it. I am sure if Guyana is making hundreds of millions of dollars on oil, I am sure, Chris, when we had to fight, when we had to go to the international court about our border, what we did, we brought together the best legal minds in the world, not just in Guyana, to take our matter to the international court. Why can't we do that now? What is so wrong about looking at, and these men, when they were not in office, they promised. Chris, one line, I know I'm taking up a lot of time, but I'm passionate about this. The APNO AFC, rightfully so, was brought down because they did not keep their word. They did not live up to their manifesto. They failed on their election promises. And the PPP, and I supported them for it, led a no confidence motion against APNO AFC and brought that government down. And now you have manifesto, you have promises, and President Ali, days before swearing in, said in room 592, I was there, that we are going to hold to our manifesto. That is a contract with the electorate of this country.
Tell me, Dexter, Article 65 of the Constitution, I think is what Yog is referring to. Subject to the provisions of this Constitution, Parliament may make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Guyana. And let me read Article 66. Subject to the special procedures set out in Article 164, Parliament may alter this Constitution. Listen to this, what that means. You can alter our Constitution of Guyana, but you can't alter a petroleum agreement improperly signed. Isn't that unbelievable? I need your answer.
It is unbelievable, but the thing is, what I want to give reference to, and
We got 3 minutes.
all right, just go to the PVP's manifesto. They have the entire manifesto and they have summaries of the manifesto. Go to the section that says oil and gas.
Would you like to read it out quickly?
Right. The first thing they said, immediate engage the oil and gas companies in better contract administration.
/ renegotiation. That's them
They,
saying
they
it.
had no better opportunity than sitting in a room with
Correct.
Darren
Woods.
Woods.
Yes, correct.
No
Right.
better opportunity. and they didn't take it.
Correct.
Right? The second one is defined by legislation how funds will flow from the sovereign wealth fund into the budget.
Well, we dealt with that
And
one already.
This thing,
We
so
did.
this is the thing. They put it there. This is not something people are now inventing against them. That's the problem. Nobody's inventing nothing new against this current government. It's what they said they're going to do. This is why X amount of people voted for them in 2020. This is why a large number of persons, including yourself, for the 5 months during all those trials, heavily debated the legality of the elections.
Let me, because
And
time
now
is
what
running
are
out.
they doing?
Time is running out on us. What are we likely to see? There's a case that is before the court. It was brought for the court to give a judgment on certain aspects of the contract. It was brought against the Attorney General because it was interpretation, what's called judicial review interpretation of this contract. Here you have the PPP and their Attorney General. Do you think that they will stick to that position, or are they going to fight to protect the benefits of ExxonMobil? You tell me, sir.
It's a tough question because now they have to show whether they're for companies or for the people.
Didn't they show that yesterday?
There's always try to spin the story. They're gonna always spin the story. So they're gonna tell you, well, we talk to the man when he going on the plane and he tell me something. So it probably might mean you'll see probably the president or the vice president flying out of the country to meet with Mr. Woods at some other later time to do a renegotiation. That's how they do these things.
Well, Vice President has said clearly that he wants to draw the line where newer things and other companies are concerned, but doesn't seem to want to touch Exxon and this contract at all.
Well, I thought as I was listening today at a conference, somebody said, well, we wouldn't look back. We are looking ahead. Apparently, he doesn't know there's something called a rear view mirror.
Well,
So we're likely to have, in the coming weeks, the government of Guyana and ExxonMobil fighting against the citizens of Guyana. What kind of perception that will create in your
What a
mind?
shame. What a shame. What a shame that the champions of workers' rights and champion of poor people that Chedi Jagan would have led, now we are at this where we are. But Chris, look, bottom line is, as a Guyanese people, we got to get together and support and call the politicians to revise the
You have the
contract.
last 10 seconds.
I'm just gonna say, as Guyanese, talk to your representatives, your regional representatives, and the politicians. Let them know your concerns. You do not have to be politically affiliated.
Mr. Dr. Yog Mahadio, Mr. Dexter George, thank you very much for appearing in Plain Talk this evening. Very passionate on critical subjects. Operators and viewers, I want to thank you very much. Viewers, I hope tonight has been instructive and informative for you. I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good night. Have a good week.
Guyana, land of